Have you ever wondered why someone who once walked away suddenly returns? Why the very person who ran from love, from intimacy, from connection shows up again, often when you least expect it? Let me tell you this, when an avoidant comes back, it's not by accident, it's not random, and it's not weakness, it's transformation. See, avoidants aren't cold because they don't feel. They're cold because they feel too much. Their distance isn't a lack of care. It's a shield built from childhood wounds, broken trust, and the fear of losing themselves in closeness. So when they finally come back, it means something monumental has shifted inside of them, something powerful, something that says, I'm ready. I can face this now. I can love without running. This speech is about that very moment, the turning point, the breakthrough, the why. Because here's the truth, love is the greatest mirror we'll ever face. And avoidants spend years running from what that mirror reflects. But when they come back, it means they've stopped running. It means the lessons, the pain, and the silence have worked on them. And today I'm going to walk you through 8 powerful truths that finally make an avoidant come back. Listen carefully, because understanding these truths won't just explain their return. They'll empower you. They'll help you stop chasing what runs and start becoming the person who attracts love that stays. So let's begin this journey together. Avoidants often believe that distance is the cure. When emotions get too heavy, when love feels too close, they pull away, convinced that space will bring them peace. At first, it seems to work. The silence feels like relief. The walls they build seem to protect them from pain. But over time, something begins to shift. That space that once felt safe begins to feel empty. That silence that felt like freedom begins to sound like loneliness. They realize that running from love doesn't heal wounds, it deepens them. They discover that solitude doesn't solve the ache in their heart, it magnifies it. When they are alone long enough, the very things they thought they were escaping, rejection, abandonment, loss, follow them into the quiet. And in that loneliness, they confront a truth they've avoided for years. Connection was never the enemy. Disconnection was. This realization doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly. A birthday passes, and they notice the one person who used to call isn't calling anymore. They achieve something at work, but there's no one to share the celebration with. They scroll through memories and realize the moments they cherished most weren't in solitude. They were in closeness. And it hits them. No matter how high they build the wall, it can't block out the longing for love. That's when the turning point begins. When the distance that once felt like salvation begins to feel like punishment. When they stop believing that independence means isolation. When they start craving the very thing they ran from, closeness. That's when they come back. Not because they are weak, but because they finally see that healing isn't in running away from love. It's in learning to stand in it. One of the most powerful triggers for an avoidant to return is witnessing the shift in you. At first, they expect you to chase. They expect the tears, the pleading, the questions of why. That's the dynamic they've seen over and over again. One person pursues and they run. But when you break that pattern, everything changes. When you stop chasing, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, you send a powerful message: I am whole, even without you. When you use the time apart not to obsess, but to grow, to expand, to become stronger and more grounded, they notice. Even if they aren't watching closely, even if they seem distant, they feel the shift in your energy. They sense the change in how you carry yourself, in the way you no longer make them the center of your world. And that change is magnetic, because deep down, avoidants are drawn to strength. They fear being consumed, so they crave a partner who can stand solid on their own. When they see you stepping into that strength, it awakens something inside of them. They realize you are not the same person they left. You are someone who commands respect, who inspires admiration, who has turned pain into power. This growth creates a safe space for them to return, because now they're not coming back to someone who depends on them for worth. They're coming back to someone who shines on their own, someone they can walk beside, not carry. And that is when their fear of closeness begins to transform into desire for connection. They don't just come back because they miss you. They come back because they see you differently, and because you've shown them a love that doesn't suffocate but empowers. Avoidants believe that distance is their cure. They tell themselves, If I just get away, I'll feel safe. If I cut off, the pressure will disappear. And in the short term, it feels like relief, like unclenching a tight fist after holding on too long. But relief is not healing. It's just avoidance wearing a mask. Over time, the silence that felt like freedom turns into chains. The space that once seemed safe transforms into emptiness. They begin to notice that the very feelings they tried to bury, loneliness, longing, fear of loss, don't vanish when they walk away. Instead, they echo louder in the quiet. They scroll through old photos, hear an inside joke, or pass by a place they once shared, and suddenly the illusion of safety crumbles. The truth sets in. Running away doesn't stop them from caring. It only stops them from experiencing the love they deeply crave. This is the first crack in the wall. It's the moment when distance reveals itself, not as a cure, but as a wound. When they realize solitude didn't heal their heart, it magnified the void. And that void is what ultimately pulls them back. Not because they are weak, but because they finally see that healing can't be found in isolation. It's found in learning how to love without losing themselves. Avoidants expect you to chase. They expect begging, tears, questions. They expect you to make them the center of your storm. But when you don't, when you pull back with grace, respect, and strength, it shocks them. Suddenly the story is different. You're not the desperate partner who validates their fear of suffocation. You're not chasing them down corridors of silence. Instead, you're standing tall, investing in yourself, and rising higher. This shift is magnetic because deep down, avoidants fear being engulfed, but they admire independence. They're drawn to people who can stand on their own 2 feet. And when you grow in their absence, when you prove that your happiness is not tethered to their presence, you become a mirror of what they secretly long for: strength, stability, and self-respect. When they see that you've transformed pain into power, that you've risen instead of collapsed, their fear turns into respect. Their distance begins to feel unnecessary. They realize you are not someone who needs them to complete you. You are someone they want to stand beside, and that is what draws them back. Avoidants don't leave relationships because of you. They leave because of them. They are haunted by old patterns built in childhood, the fear of being trapped, the fear of rejection, the belief that closeness equals danger. But when they run often enough, they start to notice the cycle. Each relationship ends the same way: distance, silence, regret. And no matter where they go, the same emptiness follows them. At some point, they realize the common denominator isn't their partners, it's themselves. This awakening hurts. It forces them to look at their own reflection. The fear, the avoidance, the escape strategies. But in facing those patterns, they see what they've lost. They see that love slipped through their fingers, not because it wasn't real, but because they couldn't hold it. And once they admit this truth, once they take ownership, something powerful shifts. They start to understand that running isn't strength, healing isn't hiding, and growth isn't escape, it's courage. That courage is what fuels their return. They come back not because you pressured them, but because they finally stopped running from themselves. In the beginning, avoidants often believe they'll find someone else. That connection is replaceable. But when they leave, when the silence stretches on, they start to notice the difference. The world is full of people, but not full of you. They can meet new faces, share new conversations, even date new partners. But the depth they felt with you doesn't repeat. The way you understood them without words, the patience you showed when their fear rose up, the love you offered without judgment, it lingers. They realize that connection like that doesn't come often. And no matter how far they go, no matter how many distractions they try, you remain in their mind, not as a memory, but as a standard. And when the weight of that realization lands, when they understand that losing you meant losing something rare, their pride bends, their defenses weaken. They come back, not just because they miss love in general, but because they miss your love. At the core of every avoidant heart is one fear: that closeness will consume them. They fear that if they return, they'll lose themselves, their freedom, their space. But when they look back and realize you never forced them, never smothered them, never demanded more than they could give, a new thought begins to grow. Maybe it's safe. Safety is the door that allows them back in. And it's not safety in the sense of no challenges or no conflict. It's safety in the sense of acceptance. You created a space where they didn't have to be perfect, a space where love wasn't about pressure, but about choice. That safety is magnetic. It calls to them, because deep down, even avoidants long for home. And when they realize home isn't a cage, but a space of freedom where love and individuality can coexist, that's when their steps turn back toward you. Time is the greatest teacher. At first, separation feels like victory. The avoidant thinks they've regained control, but as time stretches on, the truth emerges. They begin to see that their life is quieter, but not fuller. They feel lighter, but not happier. They notice that while the anxiety of closeness faded, so did the joy, the laughter, the shared dreams. Time removes the illusions and leaves only reality, and that reality is simple. Love was not their enemy. Fear was. With time, they see clearly. They realize the moments that mattered most weren't the ones spent alone, but the ones spent connected. And in that clarity, they no longer crave isolation, they crave return. Time didn't just heal. Time revealed. Avoidants spend much of their life hiding behind masks. To the world, they are strong, capable, untouchable. But with you, they were seen, truly seen. And when they walk away, that's what they lose. Not just love, but recognition. They miss the way you understood their silence, the way you noticed what others overlooked, the way you loved the parts they usually hide. Being seen is terrifying for them, but it's also intoxicating. And when they lose that, when no one else seems to notice the depth of who they are, they realize what they left behind. That realization pulls them back. Because more than passion, more than chemistry, more than comfort, what they miss is being truly known. And once you've been seen in that way, no other connection feels complete. Every avoidance journey boils down to this choice of fear or love. For years, fear wins. Fear of rejection, fear of dependence, fear of loss. But when they finally return, it's because love has become louder than fear. Something shifts. Maybe it's maturity. Maybe it's loss. Maybe it's simply exhaustion from running. But eventually, they realize fear has stolen enough from them. And in that moment, they make a different choice. A courageous choice. The choice to stay, to fight, to risk. And that's when they come back. Because love isn't about never being afraid. It's about choosing connection even when fear whispers otherwise. That choice, that brave step toward love, is what finally makes the avoidant return. When an avoidant comes back, it's never random. It's not a slip of weakness or a sudden change of heart. It's the result of deep internal battles, of distance revealing truth, of growth, both yours and theirs. It's the outcome of lessons learned in silence, of walls crumbling, of courage rising. They don't return because love is easy. They return because they realize love is worth it. They come back not to the old patterns, but to a new possibility. To a love that doesn't suffocate, but liberates. To a connection that doesn't demand perfection, but invites presence. Their return is proof that even the most guarded hearts can transform. That fear is not the final word. That love, patient, strong, and steady, can break through defenses that once seemed unshakable. But their return also carries a challenge to you to stand in your strength, to hold your worth, to welcome love without losing yourself. Because what truly made the avoidant come back was not just their change, it was yours. So if you're listening today, let this be your reminder: love doesn't need chasing. It doesn't need begging. It needs growth, respect, and courage. And when both hearts choose those things, even the most avoidant soul will find their way back home. Thank you for giving your time, your heart, and your energy to this message. My hope is that you walk away today not just with insight into avoidant love, but with empowerment for your own journey. Remember, your strength, your growth, and your self-respect are the most magnetic forces you possess. Never forget that the love meant for you will not run forever. It will return, it will transform, and it will stay. So keep growing, keep shining, and keep choosing courage over fear. Because you are worthy of a love that doesn't just come back, but stays. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.